right? And so we try to make that stuff all about us. And so what I would encourage you to think about is think of yourselves either as a doormat with a purpose, that maybe this is the person that needs to dust their feet off and they need to do it here. And what do you do when your doormat gets too full of dirt? You shake it off. And do you throw it away? Typically not. I'm on a budget, so I'm going to shake it out a few times before I get rid of it, right? But I would also like to say that if you think about the verbs that occur on a mat, you wipe your feet on it, you stomp on it, you walk on it. I would say that you do those things on a doormat, but you can also do those things on a bridge. And what's the difference between being a doormat and being a bridge? What's the difference? A bridge can connect two things. A bridge can be a tool that carries someone over an obstacle, right? So I live in Mounds View, and it's really not a diversity mecca, Mounds View, right? So it's Saturday afternoon, and I'm grabbing all my stuff to do my Saturday routines, and I decide to grab some lunch. So it's about 10:30 in the morning, so I go into a local restaurant to go grab some food, and I check out my signs of safety, right? So I want to know where all the exits are, the fire extinguishers, and the people in the bar and stuff. And when I go into the bar, what I notice is that there is a guy that's drunk at the end of the bar. I mean, red face, just drunk, slurred speech, the whole caricature, right? And it's 10:30 in the morning. So there's a couple of things that I know about this guy, right? He obviously comes to the bar pretty often, and the staff know him to allow him to get that drunk this early in the morning. The second thing that I also recognize is that he probably feels like this is his home. Right? He's comfortable here. And that I might be perceived as an outsider to his home. Right? So I recognize all that, and I order my lunch, and I close the menu. And in the process of closing the menu, the guy has moved from the end of the bar right next to me. And I'm like, So I taught high school. I worked in the residential treatment center. I wrestled in high school, so I'm not afraid of a fight. We can get down, right? But drunk people they make me nervous because they're just so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I just kind of sigh, and we start making small talk about the weather and all sorts of stuff. And then he moves into his thesis as to why he sat next to me. And he says, you know what? I don't like niggers. And I'm like, whoa, that's a heck of an introduction. Right? And so I do what any good Minnesotan would do and change the subject, right? So I changed the subject, but then something in my heart said, go back to that. Right? So I go back to it and I say, well, when you use that word, what are you talking about? And he says, I'm talking about people who are uneducated, inarticulate, people on welfare, and, he had all this negative stuff to say. And so I asked him just a simple question, do you know any white people who fit that category? And he says, yes. So I said, oh, how about those twins? So we started talking about sports and all that kind of stuff. And then he leans back over to me and he says, you know what? I don't like niggers, but I like you. Now, I'm really conflicted about all of this stuff, right? And so I just asked a follow-up question. I said, well, when you use that word, when you say you like me, what is it about me that you like? And he said, you seem to have a good head on your shoulders, you're educated, you got a good job, and, all this good stuff he's saying about me. And so I looked at him and I said, what if all the people who you think look like me, all the people that you think look like me that you've met were idiots? And everybody else that you haven't met yet is just like me. And he looks at me and he says, I gotta pee. So he gets up and he goes off to the restroom. And I'm like, I'm gonna get out of here. We haven't had any major altercations. Let me just get out of here. And so I get my check. I start heading towards the door. And guess who meets me at the door? It's this guy. But there's something different about him. His hair is combed over to the side. He's got water driplets on his face. And he has a damp napkin in his hand. And he reaches out to me with the damp napkin and he says, I have chickens. If you ever need fresh eggs, give me a call. What do? I take the napkin. I go my way. He goes his way. What happened in that interaction? What's that?
He got to know you.
He got to know me. Would you have understood if I said, I'm not going to let this guy call me outside of the name that my parents gave me. I'm going to give this guy a piece of my mind. I am not going to be a doormat. What would have happened for him? I would have reinforced everything that he thought about people who he thinks look like me. All too often, as helpers, as professionals, as people who are fighting for justice, we spend way too much time trying to be right, but not necessarily do right. And so what I would submit to you is, I'm not asking you to let people call you outside of your name. I'm not asking you to take disrespect from folks, but I am asking you to be critical about the interactions that you have. Is this an opportunity for you to teach somebody something? Is this an opportunity for you to make a connection with someone? Is this an opportunity for you to give someone the dignity and honor that they may not have for themselves? The biggest crime in this picture is the fact that this woman is being denied the dignity and honor of being human. So what is dignity? What does that mean, dignity? What's dignity? Marco? What's dignity?
Respect.
Respect? Is dignity something that you have or something that you give? Something you have or something you give? Is it something you give? Okay. I would say that it's both. That it's something that you have and something that you give. And the interesting thing about dignity is if you don't give it to people, they'll try and take it from you. I don't know if this has happened to you, but it happens to me all too often, that I'm either at a stop sign or a traffic light, and there's a group of teenagers trying to cross the street, and you would think that they could cross a little bit faster than they do, right? And inevitably, there's one teenager in the group that makes eyeball-to-eyeball contact with me as he's just kind of strolling across the street, right? As if to say, your kind, your people, adults, don't see young people anytime, but you will recognize me right now, right? So he tries to take that dignity. What is honor? Who in our society have we said that we will give honor to? Who?
Parents.
Our parents, right? Honor your mother and your father, right? We said that we'll give high respect to servicemen and women who fight wars on our behalves, for senior citizens who've come before and done really powerful things that allowed us to be here, that we will give them honor, respect at a high level. We also, but please raise your hand if you've either purchased a ticket or passed the test that made you eligible to be born on this planet. None of us have done anything to bring ourselves here. We're constantly here trying to get our dignity and honor being human so that we can get our significance, our belonging, and our safety. And we're trying to be human, finding our purpose in being to be human. And when I looked for a definition of the word human, I found something very interesting, that there are two definitions of the word human. One is being a noun, a biped, opposable thumbs, a big brain, and a belly button. If you ever encounter a person without a belly button, be concerned. Homo sapiens sapien, the one who knows they know that they exist. And then there's also human, the adjective. And what do adjectives do? They describe the noun. So what is it that we teach the youngest of our species, our nieces, our nephews, our children, grandchildren? What do we teach them about what it means to be human?
Respect other people.
To respect other people.
Kind.
To be kind. To share.
Be honest.
To be honest. Respect your elders. So part of what we battle against, particularly those of us who care about other people and who care about the world that we live in, and I find it very interesting that people often say, we need to save the earth. And I laugh because I believe that the earth will be fine. We won't, right? But those people who care about people, what we're striving for, what we're trying to give people is their dignity and honor and being human. Because there are tons of things and people who are trying to take this away from folks. Marketing thrives on decreasing this in individuals, right? Because what they say is, if you buy my product, then you will have this. If you engage in these practices by paying this money, you will get this, right? So that is and should be our highest standard. So I'm going to give you an activity right now in the little time that we have left. And so I'm going to give each table a set of cards. So on the front of the card it says, what I learned growing up. And on the back of the card, what I'd like for you to do, and there are markers that are also on your table. The cards are very slick, so the permanent markers work best. If you have your own, that's great. But on the back of the card, what I'd like for you to do is, there are categories across the top. And I did not include every category because the card only has it has limited physical space. So please think about the other categories that I could have added. So categories across the top: African American, European American, Latino, Asian, Disabled American, and Native Americans. What I want to know is, what did the people on the left side of the card, or the groups on the left side of the card, teach you or say about the groups across the top? And I want you to do this in a very particular kind of way. What I'd like for you to do is, if they taught or said something positive about that group, I want you to put a plus. If they said or taught you something negative about that group, I want you to put a minus. If it's never anything that you ever talked about, I want you to put a 0. All right? Now, you can have pluses and minuses in the same box, but the size of your plus and the size of your minus will determine how much you learned. All right? So if you learned a lot of positive, you'll have a big plus. If you learned a little bit of negative, it'll be a little negative.